Chapter 16, titled Patience. The quiet rustle overhead grows heavier until it becomes the clear rhythm of boots on packed earth. Octavia stiffens where she sits, pressed into the corner of the pit, her knees drawn close. Two men speak in low tones, their words foreign, clipped, in unfamiliar language. She tilts her head, trying to catch meaning, but the cadence is lost on her. A moment later, one set of footsteps recedes, swallowed back into the darkness of the night, while the other lingers. The moon hangs pale and cold above, spilling thin silver light through the wooden bars of her prison. Octavia keeps her eyes fixed on the dirt floor, thoughts racing. Royce. She sees his face in her mind, bloodied and defiant, and her stomach twists with dread. Is he alive? Her hands tremble against the dirt as she forces herself to imagine ways out of the cage. None feel possible. The silence stretches until it is unbearable. Too loud, sorry. Then, Octavia. Her name cuts through the stillness, startling her. She jerks her head up, eyes darting to the grate above. Octavia! The voice calls again, hushed but insistent. She pushes herself to her feet, cautious, and steps closer to the bars. Who's there? There's a pause. Then the voice answers. My name is Yuri. I was on watch with Royce. At that name, her pulse spikes. She swallows the dryness in her throat, desperation cracking through her words. Royce, is he alive? Did you hurt him? Her voice trembles into a plea. Have you done anything? A long silence follows. Finally, the voice replies, low and deliberate. Royce is alive, for now. His fate is not mine to decide. A pause, the weight of the words settling in the pit of her stomach. Then his tone sharpens, purposeful. Yours, however, yours I can influence. Her breath catches. What do you mean? Yuri doesn't answer right away. She hears the scrape of leather shifting, the faint creak of a weight moving above. Royce carried something when we found you in the forest. A necklace. Wooden beads carved with runes. It belonged to my sister. I would know it anywhere. Octavia's heart thunders. The necklace she said to have been cursed and told Royce to leave behind. He said he found it in a broken cart, half buried in the mud. Yuri continues, a voice softening. The wreckage is the last hope I have of finding her. So we made a pact, he and I. Octavia stands frozen beneath the bars, her skin prickling in the cold night air. What pact? She whispers. Yuri's response comes steady, leaving no room for doubt. If you take me to the wreck, I will free you. The two of us can slip away before the next change of watch. By the time they notice, we will be long gone. Moonlight filters through the bars, silver and cold, painting Octavia's face as she stands trembling. The footsteps above halt, and the shadows leans over the grate. Octavia! Her head snaps up, eyes narrowing against the dark. I cannot get you both out, the voice admits. Royce understood this. He told me to free you. Her breath hitches. Fury and grief twisting together. I'm not leaving without him. Tears blur her vision, burning hot as they streak down her dirt-stained cheeks. Yuri pulls back slightly, but his voice carries with a quiet urgency. I know this is hard, to trust a captor, to leave the man you love behind. But Royce wanted you to live. If you refuse, I will go to the wreckage myself. but it will mean his sacrifice was for nothing. The hatch creaks open. Yuri kneels at the edge, a rope ladder coiled in his hands. His voice drops lower. He told me to tell you this. When times are dire, when despair clouds judgment, we cannot let the motion rule us. You must go to Helga and Thorn after you show me the wreckage. Octavia stumbles backwards, breath caught in her throat. The words strike her like a blade to the heart. Her words. Words whispered to Royce after their first kiss. Words only the two of them could have shared. Royce had trusted this man with them, knowing it was the only way to reach her. Her knees weaken. She tries to speak, but no sound escapes. Yuri watches and then presses on. I gave him my word. You will not be harmed. Lead me to the wreckage, and once we are there, what you choose after is your own path. But if you try to return to him before we escape these lands, you'll doom both of you. The ladder tumbles down, rough rope twisting against the dirt wall. Octavia stares at it, paralyzed. Then, a touch, the faintest brush against her shoulder, feather light, gone as soon as it comes. She whirls around, but no one is there. Still, warmth lingers on her skin. Not earthly warmth, but something deeper, guiding. Her heart steadies. Octavia steps forward, wraps her hand around the rope, and lifts her eyes to Yuri's shadowed face. Her voice, though trembling, carries resolve. I agree. Yuri braces himself at the top of the pit, one hand outstretched. Octavia grips the rope ladder with shaking arms, climbing rung by rung until her hand finally meets his. His grip is firm and calloused. And in one swift motion, he pulls her free from the cage's darkness, thrusting her onto the solid ground. For the first time, she sees him clearly, his face lit faintly by the moonlight. Weathered features, eyes shadowed by fatigue, but a younger man hardened by duty and softened by something unspoken. She studies him for only a heartbeat before the moment is torn away. Without hesitation, Yuri yanks the ladder free and lowers the grate with a muted thud. He moves quickly, efficient as he crosses to the small, dying fire nearby. A pack lies beside it. With practiced ease, he slings it over his shoulder, sparing not a glance for the camp glowing faintly in the distance. Octavia's gaze lingers on that glow. Her chest tightens as reality claws at her. Royce is still down there. Royce, who gave himself up so she could escape. Guilt rakes through her thoughts, colliding with the reckless urge to turn back, to fight, to die at his side rather than to leave him to their fate. Her fists tremble at her sides. Time to go, Yuri whispers, his voice low but edged with urgency. The words pull her back. She turns, meeting his steady stare. For a long moment she says nothing, only glances once more over her shoulder at the faint glow of firelight across the camp. Tears form in her eyes. Her lips tremble as the words break free, barely more than a breath. I love you, Royce. I will return for you. The vow hangs heavy in the night air. She wipes her cheek with the back of her hand, drawing in a shuddering breath before facing Yuri again. There is no more hesitation in her. She gives him a firm nod, the fire of her determination settling where her grief had been. And with that, she follows him into the shadows. Octavia follows Yuri through the darkness of the night. Each step feels heavier than the last, the weight of Royce's sacrifice pressing into her chest like an iron brand. The night is quiet, not silent. The forest hums with strange sounds, the whisper of leaves stirred by unseen movement, the occasional cry of a distant bird that sounds almost human. The two move in silence, shadows weaving around them as they keep to the forest edge for hours. The tree line is their shield, but Octavia knows it cannot last forever. Each step she commits the land to memory. The tilt of a hill, the shape of a crooked tree, the glint of moonlight on stone. When she returns for Royce, she will need to know the path by heart. Eventually, Yuri slows and raises a hand. Octavia halts behind him, her breath quick, the silence heavy. If we're caught, it'll be here. This stretch is exposed. He gestures toward the open hills rising ahead. Pale with moonlight, the rocky surface is gleaming faintly with dew. No more cover, no more shadows to slip between. Stay close, he says, his tone final. Follow my lead. Without waiting for her reply, Yuri steps out of the forest safety and into the openness of the hills. Octavia swallows her fear, then follows, every sense on edge. The climb is slow, the rocks slick underfoot, their boots scraping noisily in the stillness of the night. Her lungs burn by the time they crest their first hill, but her eyes rise and freeze. Ahead, beyond Yuri's silhouette, a fire flickers in the darkness. Two small tents flank it, and beside the flame, two men stand abruptly, shadows stretching long across the ground. Hey, you there! One of them barks, voice sharp in the air night. What are you doing here? Octavia's pulse quickens. Her hand instinctively reaches where her dagger would be. But Yuri does not falter. He walks forward at the same measured pace, shoulders squared, voice calm and practiced. I am escorting this woman to Carl Dorn, he says. We mean no trouble. The two men exchange a glance, a wordless conversation in the flicker of the firelight. When their eyes return, they focus not on Yuri, but on Octavia. One smirks, his gaze crawling over her with a predator's hunger. This is no time to be escorting a woman like her, he jeers. She should stay here, with us. Yuri remains still. He folds his arms slowly across his chest, stepping closer, placing himself firmly between Octavia and the men. His composure does not crack. Are we free to go? The smirk fades on the man's face, replaced with irritation. He straightens, planting his feet, and gestures toward Octavia. You may pass, he says coldly, but she stays. Yuri takes a look back at Octavia. She remains silent, but knows the situation could burst at any second. And that, my friends, brings us to the first options of the night. Options. Let's go. Time to vote. Time to vote. Time to vote. What are we going to do? Are we going to fight? Or are we going to try talking our way out of it? Holy shit. Nobody's voting for fight? Wow. Wow, look at that. Look at that. Yeah. We got a 5-0 vote. It's a clean vote right now. That's a clean vote. What is going on? OP1 made it. Glad to see you, brother. Appreciate it. I appreciate it. We got about 50 seconds left to vote. The vote is still not out of hand, and your vote matters, shaping the story in full. Five to 1. There we go. There's the first fighting vote. The first fighting vote. We got about 20 seconds now. 6 to 1. Trashby is here and wants to talk it out. Boxer, that's a great observation. All right, we're talking it out. Instead of drawing steel, Yuri lowers his arms and takes a half step back, as though conceding. His voice stays level, almost deceitful. You're right. No sense in crossing blades. She'll stay. Octavia shoots him a glare, but before she can react, Yuri flicks his eye toward her. Subtle, silent command. Trust me. The guards relax slightly, exchanging smug grins as they turn their attention toward Octavia. And that's when Yuri strikes. Not with a blade, but with words. You may keep her, he says smoothly. You'll need to explain it to Lady Torvi when she learns you intercepted one of her escorts. The smirks fade. The men freeze, caught in the weight of her name. Torvi? One mutters. Yuri steps closer, his tone deadly calm. She'll ask me why we were delayed. Should I tell her it was because of you, that you disobeyed orders? The guards stiffen, fear flickering across their face. Torvi's wrath is something they clearly know. The moment stretches, then one curses under their breath and waves them past. Fine, be gone. But if you're lying, we won't trouble you any further, Yuri interrupts, steering Octavia past the fire. Only when the flames are far behind do Octavia's shoulders finally relax. She exhales shakingly, realizing just how close they'd come. Yuri's calm, calculating gaze stays forward. Steel is useful, he says quietly, but fear can be sharper. The night stretches on, the rocky ground crunching softly beneath their boots. Yuri moves with the calm certainty of a man who has walked this path 100 times, his frame cutting a steady silhouette against the pale wash of moonlight. His focus never wavered, eyes fixed forward as though the darkness itself were a familiar companion. Octavia follows close behind, her steps careful, her thoughts anything but. A storm of question churns in her mind, about Royce, about Yuri's true intentions, about whether she is walking towards safety or betrayal. Yet she remains silent, her resolve keeping the words trapped behind her lips. Hours pass. Slowly the sky softens to a muted gray. Then hints of amber begin to glow again along the horizon. The world shifts with dawn. The shadows shorten. The frost glistens on the rocks, and the birds stir in the trees. Octavia's eyes roam the landscape, her heart quickening as recognition dawns. She knows this place. She and Royce had crossed near here before. Home feels impossibly far, but familiar ground gives her courage. The first rays of sun spill over the hills as Yuri slows his pace, eventually stopping at the crest of a ridge. He raises a hand, signaling her to halt. His voice is low. This is the divide, he says, his gaze sweeping the fields below. From here, access reach thins. These are Leaf's lands. You take the lead now. Octavia steps forward, the sight before her stark and open. Rocky hills giving way to wide expanse of farmland, golden fields stretching to the edge of the sight. She inhales deeply, her breath trembling but steady as she turns to face Yuri. Determination flickers in her emerald green eyes. If we move quickly, we can reach the wreckage by midday, she says, her voice steady, though a quiet edge of weariness lingering. A pause, heavier than the words that follow. Then we part ways. Yuri studies her for a moment, a faint smile tugging at his lips, more acknowledgement than warmth. That is correct. Octavia nods once, sharp and certain, and then turns and takes the first steps down the slope. Yuri falls into step just behind her, his presence quiet but constant. They move along the tree line, shadows clinging to them like cloaks. The open farmland yawns to their left, dotted with distant cottages and tilled soil. Octavia keeps her gaze sharp, remembering landmarks, the bend of a river, the jagged outcrop of stone, the ways the trees knot together at certain points. They pass a handful of traders on the road, but no one pays them anything more than a passing glance. By the time the sun climbs high overhead, the path bends once more, carrying them toward the familiar entrance of the forest. The trees gather close again. And there, just ahead, lies the threshold to the place where Royce went against Octavia's advice and picked up that necklace. The thread of fate binding her to the stranger who set her free because of it, now walking at her side. The canopy above breaks the sunlight into fragments, shards flickering across the forest floor as Octavia and Yuri press deeper into the woods. Each step crackles against damp leaves, and though Octavia keeps her breathing steady, unease coils in her chest. The closer they draw to the wreckage, the heavier the weight of uncertainty grows. At last, the trees part just enough to reveal it, the shattered remains of a cart. Time has not softened the ruin. Splintered wood lies scattered, broken wheels half buried in the soil, and empty crates lie smashed open like discarded husk. Yuri's pace quickens at once. He surges ahead, falling to his knees among the wreckage, hands moving frantically over the ground as if Earth itself might give him answers. Octavia halts a few steps away, watching him in silence. The concern that had haunted her since the start of their journey begins to shift, replaced by something else: understanding. The desperation in Yuri's movements is raw, unguarded. She can see him in what Royce saw, the fierce love for his sister, the hope that still clings despite the odds. All we found was the necklace, Octavia says softly, her voice breaking the quiet. Was there any signs of a struggle? Blood, tracks, anything? Yuri's voice is tense as he runs through his fingers through the dirt, brushing aside leaves and stones. No, Octavia replies gentler this time. Not that we saw. Yuri freezes, his hands still pressed to the ground. Slowly he lifts his head, meeting her gaze with heavy eyes. I'm sorry I could not free Royce as well. You kept your part of the deal, just as he said you would. You are free to go. He turns back to the debris, his attention narrowing once again. Octavia lingers, her arms folding across her chest as silence stretches between them. Her voice, when it comes, is low but sharp. And what will you do now? Alone, with no leads in a place you don't know. Yuri strains, brushing dirt from his hands. I suppose, he says with a faint, crooked smirk. But that is no longer your concern. Octavia studies him for a long moment, weighing the edge of his words against the truth she has come to see in him. Finally, she steps forward. I will head back to the north, to a camp in the forest east of Hull. I'll gather who I can to return for Royce. If you find her, or if you need help, you know where to find me. For the first time, Yuri gives her a nod that feels more of respect than dismissal. Then I hope you find him, he says quietly. And I hope you find her, Octavia replies. The forest stills around them, the wreckage standing as a grim reminder of the lives torn apart, while two unlikely allies part way, each carrying their own fragile thread of hope. What's going on, Tactical? Octavia makes her way down the path, glancing over her shoulder more than once. Each time, Yuri's figure grows smaller until the trees finally swallow him from sight. Though their time had been brief, and though he had been among her captors, she feels an unexpected stab of empathy. He had kept his word, shielded her from harm, and treated her with respect she had not anticipated. But the thought of Roy seizes her heart, pushing all else aside. Every memory of him, his voice, his touch, the look in his eyes before they were torn apart, drives her feet faster. She tells herself that every second counts. She must reach Thorn and Helga. She must act before it's too late. By the time the sun begins to sink beyond the horizon, the fortress looms ahead. The sight halts her for a breath. The walls, once scarred, now reinforced, its wooden beams braced with fresh stone. Banners of Kolsvik flutter where enemy sigils once hung. Memories but rush back in a flood, scouting the perimeter, the clash of steel, Royce's voice breaking through the chaos to tell her he loved her. There's no time to dwell. She pushes forward, past the gates that swing up wide at her approach, and strides across the courtyard. Her boots echo against the packed earth as she heads straight to the largest building. With a shove, the heavy doors groan open, spitting the glow of firelight into her face. Inside, a great hearth blazes, casting long shadows against the timber walls. Helga sits at a long table, surrounded by a handful of soldiers and advisors, her expression as sharp and impatient as ever. She doesn't even glance up at first, until the doors close behind Octavia. Then her head jerks, her chair scraping loudly as she nearly overturns it in a haste. Octavia! Helga blurts, god fucking damn it, her voice caught between shock and fury. What in the God's name are you doing here? Octavia advances steadily into the room, her face set, her voice clear, though her heart races. We must speak, alone. The others shift in their seats, glancing uneasily between the two women. Helga narrows her eyes, studying Octavia with intuition of a seasoned warrior. After a heartbeat, she snaps, Leave us! Chairs scrape and boots shuffle as the soldiers and advisors quickly rise, bowing their heads before filing out. Their eyes flick toward Octavia with curiosity and unease as they pass, till the heavy doors close behind them and silence settles into the hall. The hall is silent except the steady crackle of the hearth. Octavia stands in the center of the room, the weight of every mile she's traveled pressing on her shoulders. Helga folds her arms, her sharp eyes narrowing as she waits. Octavia draws a slow, shaky breath. Her voice trembles at first, but steadies as the words force their way out. Royce and I, we were captured in Yorkmere Forest. Helga's face sharpens instantly, but she doesn't interrupt. Her silence feels heavy, like she's bracing herself for the rest. They beat us, threatened us, tried to break us. Octavia's fists clench at her sides. Eventually they separated us. I was thrown into a pit in Royce. Royce was taken elsewhere. Her throat tightens, but she pushes on. One of the men struck a deal with him. If I led him to the ruins of his sister's cot, he would let me go. She begins pacing, her words spilling faster, edged with grief and fury. I wanted to turn back. I wanted to fight for him, to tear down every wall until I found him. But he knew I would, and he made sure I couldn't. He chose my freedom over his own. The weight of it all, the days of fear, the helpless separation. Royce's sacrifice finally crashes down. Octavia's voice breaks and tears spill freely as her body trembles. For a long, heavy moment, Helga just studies her. The firelight flickers across her face, throwing sharp shadows across her stern features. Finally, she exhales, slow and deep, then steps forward. Her hands come down firmly and steady on Octavia's shoulders. Royce bought your freedom with his chains, Helga says, her tone grim but not unkind. Octavia lifts her tear-streaked face, her voice raw. I won't abandon him, Helga. He gave me a chance to live, but I swear to you, I will bring him back. Helga's sternness softens just slightly. She pulls Octavia into a rough embrace, arms strong and steady around her. You're exhausted, she says quietly. There's nothing we can do at this moment. Rest now. We'll speak more when you wake. She guides Octavia to a side chamber within the hall. Though Octavia's mind is ablaze with fear and determination, her body finally surrenders to exhaustion. Within moments of lying down, she is claimed by darkness. The sun spills through the narrow window, a bright gold that drapes across the floorboards. Octavia stirs awake to the low hum of voices beyond the door. Soldiers and advisors already beginning their day. Her body protests every moment, sore from travel, exhaustion, and the weight of memory, but she forces herself upright. When she enters the hall, Helga is already seated at the long table. Her posture straight, her expression softer than usual. A faint smile tugs at her lips as Octavia approaches, an unspoken welcome. They share a quiet breakfast, the taste of warm bread and smoked fish grounding Octavia for the first time in days. As she eats, she recounts everything, why they were there, each detail of their capture, the pit, Yuri, Royce's sacrifice, and the journey back. Her voice falters only when speaking of Royce, but she presses on, determined not to leave anything unsaid. Helga listens intently, her sharp eyes betraying little, only interrupting to ask for clarity when needed. For hours, Octavia speaks, unspooling the tangled knots of her ordeal, while Helga gathers the threads in silence. At last, Helga rises, her chair scraping against the wood. She takes a long drink from her cup before speaking. "You have given me much to weigh," she says, her tone firm but touched with something almost gentle. "I will speak with the others. We will see what can be done." Her gaze sharpens again, returning to the Helga Octavia knows, the commander, not the confidant. "In the meantime, rest. We will need you whole if we act." Octavia nods and withdraws to the side chamber. She spends the hours that follow sketching maps, tracing Yuri's and her own path, and imagining routes of attack and escape. The silence of the room becomes heavy, broken only by the scratch of charcoal against parchment and the restless rhythm of her thoughts. Time blurs. She finds herself glancing toward the door again and again, waiting for the inevitable knock, the call to action, the signal that Royce's rescue might begin. But the knock never comes. By evening, impatience gnaws at her. She nearly rises to go find Helga herself, but she knows decisions of this weight are not made hastily. Her hands linger on one of the rolled maps before she finally sets it to the side. Stretching across the small bed, she lets her body sink into the furs. She turns onto her side, the furs gathered tight around her shoulders, and stares at the wavering glow of the hearthlight spinning faintly beneath the door. But it isn't the fire she sees, it's Royce. The memory of him is sharper than any map she's drawn, the way his eyes found hers even in the darkest moment. The warmth of his hand against her cheek, the stubborn steadiness in his voice when he promised her everything would be alright. She remembers his grin, weary but unbroken, and the bloody defiance he wore like armor. Her chest tightens. Somewhere out there, he still breathes, chained by fate yet refusing to yield. And though distance stretches between them now, she feels him, like a tether pulled tight across the miles, a reminder that she cannot rest forever while he remains in captivity. Octavia closes her eyes, clutching the image of him as tightly as she clutches the blankets. "Hold on, Royce," she thinks, letting exhaustion finally pull her under. "I will find you, I swear it." Sleep drags Octavia deep, and in the darkness of her mind, a forest unfolds. Mist curling low across twisted roots, branches clawing towards the stars. She stands at the crossroads where two paths split beneath a looming stone carved with runes she does not understand. A chill breeze stirs her hair, and a voice, familiar yet far away, whispers, "Choose." The path to her left burns with a faint red glow, as if the embers are hidden beneath the soil. Octavia steps forward, and the mist thickens until she finds herself in a hall of war banners, the smell of iron and blood heavy in the air. At the far end of the hall, she sees Royce, bound, bruised, yet alive. His head lifts, his eyes meeting hers with the unshakable fire she knows so well. But between them stand soldiers, dozens of them, faceless and armored. Octavia grips a sword that has suddenly appeared in her hand. She knows this path demands blood, war, and direct confrontation. Royce can be reached, but only if she dares to fight armies and rallies others to a cause. Voice echoes from nowhere and everywhere. To walk this path, you must strike without hesitation. Save him with steel, but spill rivers of blood. She turns to the path to her right, which glows faintly blue, cool and steady. She follows it, and the forest melts into a quiet village lit with lanterns. She sees familiar faces: Helga, Thorin, and even Leith, hunched over maps whispering strategy. Royce does not appear here, but his voice drifts on the wind, distant yet urging. Wait for the right moment. Trust them. Trust yourself. She realizes this path is not of reckless action, but of patience and alliance. It shows her building strength, weaving bonds, gathering knowledge until the right chance reveals itself. Royce will not be saved swiftly, but perhaps this is the only way to save both him and herself. The same voice whispers again, softer this time. To walk this path, you must wait, endure, and trust others. Save him with time, but risk losing him to the dark if you falter. Octavia returns to the crossroads, both visions still burning in her mind. The ruined stone looms over her, its markings now glowing faintly with both red and blue light. The voice whispers once more, a warning and a promise. 2 ways lie ahead. One of steel, the red. One of shadow, the blue. Both may lead you to Royce, but each will cost you dearly. And that brings us to options. Stand by. Time to vote. Time to vote. Time to vote. What's going on, Roman? Oh shit, we got a tie ball game. We got a tie ball game. 3-3. 4-3. Voting is neck and neck. Neck and neck. Neck and neck. Four, 3, we got about 45 seconds left. It is time to vote, vote, vote. You can do it. You can do it. 30 seconds. Four to 4. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Are we gonna have a tie? All right. We're bringing it to a D20, it looks like. Hopefully this works. If it is 1 through 10, it is the path of steel. If it is 11 through 20, it is the path of shadows. Let us roll. It looks like we get the path of shadows. Octavia touches the blue. Hold on a second. I need to highlight this. Hold on. Octavia touches the blue rune, expecting cold, but instead she feels stillness. The battlefield haze dissolves, replaced by a hall of stone, lit by dim torches. It is quiet, but not empty. Figures sit at a long table. Thorin, Helga, and Leif. Their faces half lit, half shrouded. Royce's voice comes faintly from the shadows behind her. You want to run to me, tear down every wall. But not all paths are won with haste. Octavia takes a step toward the table. The three leaders look up, each meeting her gaze in their turn. Thorin's fists are clenched on the table. Helga's eyes narrow with thought, and Leif studies her with the weight of responsibility. You cannot face this alone, Helga says, her voice firm. Leif's voice follows, calm but edged with steel. If you strike too soon, you lose not just Royce, but yourself, and all of those who would follow you. Wait, trust us. When the time comes, we will act together. Thorin slams his hand on the table, his voice booming. The blood in your heart is fire, Octavia. But fire without control burns everything. Patience, or you risk losing it all. The torches dim, and the scene shifts. For a heartbeat, Octavia sees Royce, alive, though bound in shadow. Around him, faceless figures move, whispering in language she cannot hear. She feels the distance like an ache. But then another vision overtakes it. Herself standing with Thorin, Helga, and Leif at the head of an army. Banners high, warriors ready. The shadow of Royce's prison flickers, and she knows this path may not free him quickly, but it may free him surely. The shadows of the hall lean closer, the voices of the three leaders echoing together. Patience, trust, unity. These are your weapons if you choose us. Behind her, Royce's voice fades, soft as a memory. Don't lose hope. I will endure. Find me when the time is right. And that brings us to option. Another poll. Another poll. Another poll. Another poll. Do we touch the redstone now? The redstone was the path of steel. We got a 6-3 vote. A 6-3 vote. We got one more person who voted on this one. Hey, she's dreaming right now, Robin. Who knows what this means? Who knows what it means? Fight for love. There we go. We did say the blue path. That was the first one chosen. Now you're getting the option if you want to touch the other one. Now we're getting the option if we want to touch the other one. All right. Okay, if I change your vote, it's 5-4. It still wins. Octavia takes her hand off of the glowing red or glowing blue stone, and she reaches for the rune glowing red. The ground beneath her feet shudders, and the forest melts into a battlefield. The air is heavy with the stench of blood and smoke, banners torn and bodies scattered across churned earth. At the center of the chaos, Royce is bound to a stake, soldiers crowding around him, their weapons glinting crimson in the firelight. His eyes find hers across the battlefield, defiant, unbroken, but his lips part in warning. It will cost you everything. A sword materializes in Octavia's hand, its weight both familiar and foreign. The moment she grips it, warriors surge towards her, faceless, armored shadows. She charges without hesitation. Each clash reverberates through her bones, steel on steel, cries of rage and pain, her blade cutting through wave after wave. She sees flashing of herself, rallying others, Helga, Thorin, and nameless soldiers at her side. Every strike she makes in the vision costs her allies' lives. The field becomes slick with their blood. The closer she fights toward Royce, the brighter his figure shines amidst the carnage. Octavia finally cuts down the last faceless warrior and stumbles to Royce's side, her body drenched in blood, her sword chipped and dull. She cuts his bindings, and he collapses into her arms. But when she looks around, she sees nothing but bodies. Every ally she rallied lies broken. The battlefield is silent, save for Royce's strained breathing. The voice returns, colder now. Steel will lead you to him. You will reach him, but you will stand upon a mountain of ashes. Every victory demands a sacrifice. Royce lifts his face toward hers, eyes full of sorrow. He whispers, "You saved me, Octavia. But at what cost?" The battlefield dissolves into smoke. The stench of blood fades, replaced by the crackling of a hearth. Octavia bolts upright in bed, sweat dripping from her brow, heart pounding. The echo of the dream lingers. The sword still heavy in her hand, Royce's voice haunting in her ears. Path of Steel has shown her one truth. If she pursues him alone, she will find him. But everyone she cares about may pay the price. While at the other hand, the path of shadow demands silence, demands something harder, patience, trust, and the will to wait until the moment to strike is undeniable. Octavia rubs her tired eyes and swings her legs out the bed. The maps and notes she had spread across the table the night before still wait for her attention, but a sharp knock interrupts her thoughts. Helga is ready to see you, comes a voice through the door. Octavia straightens, her chest tightening with anticipation. She slips out of the room and follows the messenger into the great hall. Helga and several council members sit elevated on a wooden platform, their faces solemn in the morning light. They motion for Octavia to take a seat at one of the lower tables. The silence is heavy as she sits, all eyes on her. Helga leans forward, her hands clasped. Octavia, she begins, her tone almost gentle. You and Royce have given so much to Kozvik. Without you, this fortress would still be in enemy hands. Hull would be little more than ashes. She pauses, her gaze flickering away as though dreading her next words. But what you've brought us now is far more complicated. You and Royce were captured deep within Axel's land. To free him, we would need to march soldiers across the border. A clear act of war. A war that, by all accounts, is nearly upon us already. Her eyes sweep the council before settling back on Octavia. Without the Leaf's approval, we cannot act. That is our law and our duty. Octavia feels her blood rise. Her heart pounds as she pushes back from her chair, hands clasped together as if in prayer. We don't need an army, she pleads. Just a handful of men, mercenaries, volunteers. I know the land. I know where he is. We would be in and out before Axel even knew we were there. Please, Helga. Every day we wait, we could be closer to death. Helga's expression hardens. I understand your pain, she says evenly, but we cannot risk plunging ourselves into a war for one man. Before Octavia can reply, the door at the back of the hall slams open. To hell we can't! Thorin strides into the chamber. His face is still bruised, his body battered, and he leans on a stick with every step. But his presence ignites the room. Every eye turns as he hobbles to Octavia's side. Thorin, Helga demands, her composure faltering. What are you doing here? He gives Octavia a firm nod, then fixes the council with a scared, with a stone gaze. I'm here to stop you from making a mistake. He jabs his stick toward the platform. Without Royce and Octavia, this hall would be filled with our enemies. The war has already started. Axel's men raid our villages. They burn our homes. We are fools if we pretended it hasn't begun. Thorn takes another step closer, his voice dropping, but no less fierce. I overheard your talk yesterday, so I sent a messenger to Leaf. The council stiffens. Helga narrows her eyes. And what message did you send? A slow smile creeps across Thorin's battered face. That Octavia, you, and I are assembling a small company to bring Royce home. Silence grips the hall. Octavia stares at Thorin, hardly daring to breathe. She turns to Helga, bracing for her fury. But instead, she sees the faintest flicker of something else in her eyes. Approval. As if Thorin had done what she herself could not. Thorin turns to Octavia, the hardness in his scarred face softening. His voice, though worn, carries a steady strength. I know your heart screams for action now, and I will not chain you here if you choose to leave. But give me 2 weeks. Let me heal. Let me gather my best warriors, men I trust with my life. Let us form a plan. I want to be there when we tear Royce from their hands. I owe it to him, and I owe it to you. Octavia's breath catches. She stares into Thorin's eyes and sees the truth written there. The raw sincerity of a man who had marched at her side this very hour, if not for his injuries that bind him. Her chest tightens, torn between the fire in her veins urging her to act and the grim logic of his plea. Every day she waits is another day Royce could suffer, another chance fate could steal him forever. And yet, charging blindly now could do but in blindly by herself now could doom them both. Thorin steps closer, leaning on his stick, his voice lowering so only she can hear. So, Octavia, he says, steady and unflinching, what do you say? The hall falls into silence, all eyes fixed on her, waiting, weighing, ready to see whether she chooses fury or patience, impulse or strategy. And that, my friends, brings us to another poll. Holy shit. 3 in one fucking story read? Holy shit. Holy shit. What is Octavia to do? To go on her own or to wait for her allies? Wait 2 weeks for her allies. What should she do? What should she do? We've got 3 votes. You're good, Bland. You are free to come and go when you can, my brother. You are free to come and go as you please. Two. 2-2. 3-2. Voting is running out 4-2. We are running out of time. 5-2. I think our decision has been made. There it is. Wait for Thorin. Wait for Thorin wins the voting. And with that being said, my brothers and sisters, scene.